How are, in your view, how are the 6 people who are coming here who want to be president, why are they coming to this meeting to talk to this group?
Well, I think they recognize that in the room there are a couple of hundred of people who are very, very supportive of my campaign in many cases. There's some folks that were with other campaigns as well, and they want a chance to see them, to share their message, and hopefully to get support. From my standpoint and from the audience's standpoint, this is a chance to hear different people's visions for the future of the country, as well as understand some of the lessons of leadership that we all can learn from.
You've become a pretty learned student of the Republican nomination process. So just overall, how do you think the current jockeying is going?
Well, I think it's way too early to make any real assessments of who's going to come out on top. Even a discussion of who are the front runners. It's like, my goodness, as you look at the polls, the gaps between the candidates are actually smaller than the margin of error of the pollster. So we really don't know who's going to emerge at the very, very top of this, but it's a starting process, and you have to look and say there are some folks who've done a better job at raising money and putting together campaign teams, and yet the messaging and the debating, that's going to happen down the road, and that's going to separate those that have real potential from those that have less.
Do you have a private instinct about who the nominee is going to be?
I don't. I think there are 6 or 7 who I'd be happy seeing as our nominee, and that means they're people who I think have a good shot of winning in November of 16, and whose views on major issues are closest to my own, and that's why it's not all 15, it's probably a smaller group. But which of them will emerge with the most effective voice and get the greatest support of the Republican voters, I just don't know.
Is your instinct, because it's so competitive and wide open, that this will be not a short nomination fight, but more along the lines of what you had to endure, which is a longer fight?
I think it has the potential of being a longer process. I don't know that I can judge whether it's going to narrow quickly. Because, for instance, it could happen that someone wins 2 or 3 of the first 4 contests, and it narrows very, very quickly. The others drop out, and you've got a contest that's done by April or May. On the other hand, it could be something where a lot of people get support, a lot of people get delegates, and it takes the entire process to see who the nominee will be.
I want to ask you about a couple people I talk to say you have strong opinions about. And I want you can say that's true, or you can say it's not true, whatever the fact is. People say that while you do like 6 or so of the candidates and feel good about them, that right now you sort of like Marco Rubio maybe best, or you're most intrigued by him as your party's nominee. Is that true?
No, I like Marco, but I like a number of others as well, and I'm fiercely neutral in this process. For me, the question is, who's going to be most effective in galvanizing support of the American people? And that I don't know. We'll get a chance to hear them in the debates and hear their speeches, but we haven't heard the speeches yet in the debates. But in terms of people I'm closest to personally, I'm probably closer personally to Jeb Bush, as a result of the fact that we worked together as governors. I've known his family for some time. They are very supportive of me. I've come to know Marco. I respect him and like him. Scott Walker, I didn't know terribly well, but we've spent a lot of time together recently. Very impressed with him and with his wife, Tanette, and he's a great father as well. So, and Lindsey Graham I've known for some time. A funny guy. Yeah. I mean, he's got a great sense of humor. I love Lindsey. And Carly Fiorina. Carly is surprising a lot of people by being out there campaigning aggressively, pointing out the distinctions between our vision and Hillary Clinton's. Like her a lot. And, of course, Christie. Christie and I, we're probably as close as any two. Right. Spent a lot of time with him and feel very close to him. So, and I know some people count him out. Not me. We like the comeback story. He's a straight talker. He's been a very effective leader, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him get a head of steam up.
You think he has as good a chance as anybody?
Oh, I think at this stage it's hard to say, but I look and say of all these people here, he is certainly someone who has a great deal of potential to become our nominee.
And so just close up on Senator Rubio, because I listened to everything you said. It's not the case that currently you view him as perhaps the strongest potential nominee for your party.
I have not chosen who I think is the strongest potential nominee.
Okay.
And in terms of personal relationships, right. I've got him across the board.
All right, so you mentioned Governor Bush. Again, I'm not asking this with any prejudgment, but many people people assert to me all the time that you and Governor Bush are not currently on good terms. Is that true or not true?
Total baloney. I don't know where that would come from.
You've not heard that from anybody?
No, we've never had. I haven't heard it except from you. No, I'm kidding. We're very close.
You haven't heard it from other people?
Oh, I read little, blogs or whatever.
But it's categorically not true. You're in great terms.
On what basis would there be any conflict? I can't imagine. His grand strategist, Mike Murphy, and I are very close. We send emails back and forth. Sally Bradshaw was helpful to my campaign, helped put things together for us in Florida. Right. A lot of the people on his staff are old staff members of mine. Right. His donors are overwhelmingly people who helped me in my campaign. And Jeb and I, we get along great. We've spent a lot of time together over the years.
Have you talked lately?
Yeah, and email, and I'll be at Walker Point this summer, and we'll have lunch together with Jeb and the family.
I want to ask you one question about the Democratic side. The Clintons are very frustrated. They say the coverage of their personal finances is unfair, often inaccurate. You and Mrs. Romney dealt with a lot of scrutiny of your personal finances. Without getting into the particulars of the accusations, which we don't have time to do you have any empathy for them in terms of the sort of unrelenting scrutiny, some by enemies, political rivals, enemies, some by the media, of personal finances of somebody in the political arena?
If the personal finances are not associated with your responsibility in government, why, I'm not sure those finances deserve a lot of attention. But in the case of the Clintons, their finances were very closely linked with her service as the Secretary of State. Right. And the idea that you're taking in millions and millions of dollars from foreign entities at the same time you're Secretary of State presents a real problem.
I had a funny feeling you'd raise that distinction. And I'm not saying that's a meaningless one, but just I'm saying, you know the Clintons on a personal level. You know the way the press works, the way politics works. Some of the things that they're charged with aren't true. Some are, but some aren't. Do you have any personal sympathy for them in terms of what they're going through now?
Look, we can all feel bad about all the negative stories that get written about people, whether on the Republican side or the Democrat side. But that is part of the game. That is part of the process of becoming president of the United States. And Secretary Clinton, she has that experience. She knows what she's in for. Every Republican running, they know what they're in for. And by the way, net, it's a fabulous, positive experience. Are there downsides and bad days when you get hit and you don't think it's fair? Sure. But the chance to run for president of the United States is an amazing honor and great fun. I mean, you meet people across the country that make you convinced that America's brightest days are ahead. You become more optimistic, not pessimistic.
So next time you and Jeb are emailing, feel free to copy me. Governor, thank you.
It won't be on my personal server.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much, Governor.
Thank you, Mark.